Hello friends, unfortunately we have some unpleasant news. 3 stories from Poland in the past few days. A tragedy on the Vistula, the progress of the investigation by the Lublin prosecutor's office, a fight with a driver, and some unexpected conclusions from scientists about why Ukrainians feel great in Poland. Where the facts end, emotions begin. Let's figure it out. Please, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, friends. Huge thanks to everyone who leaves a like to support aerodynamics. Take 2 seconds, hit the bell so you don't miss new episodes. Reminder, transfer.u is the top money transfer service. The link's in the description. Register and send money to your family. Now let's get started. Before we move on to the tragedies, let's talk about a very unpleasant incident in the center of Kielce. A fence suddenly appeared with various offensive words directed against migrants, Ukrainians, and the city's president of Meet Agata Voida. City authorities reported the incident to police. The president of Kielce stated that she is concerned about the rise of hate speech, which is increasingly moving beyond the internet and appearing in public spaces. Political scientists also draw attention to the radicalization of public discourse and urge politicians to be responsible with their words. Yes, these disturbing images appear, including death to Ukrainians. Law enforcement is investigating the incident, but the search for those involved is difficult because the area lacked video surveillance. Comment below, friends. Have you noticed an increase in violence in Poland, or is everything fine? As they say, everything is wonderful, my dear Marquise. But let's move on to our previously announced news topics. On Sunday, June 21st at 7 p.m., the Warsaw Emergency Service received a call about 2 people who started swimming in the Vistula River. And preliminary data indicates that 3 teenagers were involved in the incident. 2 boys, both 15 years old, and a girl. According to Vava News, all 3 are Ukrainian citizens. The teenagers entered the water, but only one managed to get out. Yes, in short, a boy went missing, disappeared under the water. Numerous services have been dispatched to the scene, including the police and so on. Despite intensive efforts, the teenager could not be found. The operation was resumed the next day. Well, it's terrible, of course. A young guy, yeah, and for sure someone in the comments will ask why he wasn't at the front. Why not at the, right in the comments. Also, Tilishi, explain why you're not at the front, since there have been very few comments like this lately. But what scares me about this whole story is, of course, the tragedy, yes, on a local level, that the guy went swimming and didn't come back. But you should have seen how many comments there were from Polish users on Facebook. I just get the impression that people haven't needed the internet for a long time. They don't need the internet, they need a break from it. It's a little bit of humanity. Of course, a humorous question comes up, a bit of dark humor. What will happen to the second Ukrainian? He went swimming where he wasn't supposed to. They'll probably deport him. Well, sorry, I couldn't resist. By the way, as of June 2026, the official statistics on tragic incidents on the water in Poland look like this. From January 1 to May 31, there were 65 fatal drownings. Well, it's not surprising that among them there were also Ukrainians. With the start of the warm season, the numbers began to grow. They started increasing faster. Because from April 1, when especially daring people start swimming, to June 2054 people died. Take care of yourself and loved ones. So, friends, what else? We also had another tragedy with a Ukrainian in the Lublin Voivodeship. The village is Kielce. The local prosecutor's office is investigating the circumstances. A 17-year-old citizen of Ukraine died. Yes, the situation there is grim and complicated. The young man left the educational care center without permission, notifying neither educators nor friends. And a few hours later, one of the staff members of the institution found his body near one of the houses. The initial conclusion is clear. He hanged himself. The prosecutor ordered several investigations. The deceased's mother quickly traveled to Poland. Just to clarify, she wasn't in Poland. She'll be questioned with a consulate representative present following procedures. Anything can happen in life. I'm not saying you're a bad mother. We don't know what was happening in that family. The strangest thing about this whole story is that there were no motives. Both teachers and peers say the guy behaved normally. He didn't complain about any difficulties in life. He didn't have any suicidal intentions. At the same time, the Polish law enforcement officers emphasized that no third parties were found to be present. Well, I'll tell you this. Of course, we're not making any blanket accusations against anyone right now. But I'll tell you, even when surveillance cameras later show that some child, not necessarily a Ukrainian child, just a child, was being bullied. In kindergarten, the teacher said he had great relationships and everything was fine. Well, it's sad, yes, of course. Next, a serious incident occurred in the Brodno district of Warsaw. The driver, a taxi driver, 44 years old from Ukraine, also, why isn't he at the front, was injured after completing the trip. That's the preliminary information. He brought the female passengers. They ordered everything through the app. Well, after arriving, there was a slight misunderstanding between the driver and the women, which escalated into a conflict. It's unclear who said what to whom, because at the moment, there's no audio recording of what happened in the car. Eyewitnesses report the female passengers may have been drunk, but that's unconfirmed. They might have said, "You're not at the front." Well, the guy didn't start acting aggressive, but let's say he started making excuses, responding, and then something went wrong. Maybe, but that's not certain. A 36-year-old acquaintance of the women, who was in a nearby apartment, heard the screams. He went outside to find out what was happening and ended up becoming involved in the conflict himself. The verbal argument quickly escalated into a fight. During the scuffle, the driver was hit on the head with an empty beer bottle. He was seriously injured. There was a lot of blood and a lot of glass. The victim needed medical assistance, and the law enforcement officer was detained. A 36-year-old Pole is only suspected of being involved in the attack, but it's known that he was sober. Interesting, isn't it? And friends, I want to tell you that investigators are establishing all the circumstances of the incident, questioning a witness, and figuring out what happened, right? Well, according to the police spokesperson, now we're going to figure out what's actually happening here. Of course, this isn't the first attack on a taxi driver, and it won't be the last. Yes. Well, of course, it's an interesting case. And what do you think? Is it connected to the media pressure on Ukrainians, the stories about ingratitude and all that? Or is it unconnected or just a coincidence? Yes, and reading all these news stories, friends, these tragedies, beatings, daily deportations, and then something wonderful begins. There is a prestigious journal called Frontiers in Public Health. Sorry for my English, I can only say tu is twiski tubiru in English. So, they did a titanic job. They uncovered a great secret for humanity. They conducted a survey. They surveyed 1,600 people and discovered something amazing. It turns out that if there are no rockets flying overhead and no sirens wailing, people's stress levels go down. Science did not let us down, but look, we're talking about the geography of tranquility, and here it's about Cypriot beaches and German bureaucracy. The people who feel the worst psychologically are the internally displaced persons within Ukraine. Well, that's not really a surprise. Living near war doesn't improve your mental state, especially away from home. For those abroad, the situation becomes even more interesting. The most depressive regions are Slovenia, Portugal, Spain, and Germany, with its €600 social benefits, of course. That's not like the 800 plus in Poland. With 800 plus, you can live well, which is exactly what millions of Ukrainians are doing here, according to some right-wingers with alternative views. So apparently things really aren't that great in Germany. If you live in Germany, write in the comments how it is for you there. But what's interesting is this. According to the study, Cyprus and Poland unexpectedly became the safe havens with the lowest stress levels. Cyprus makes sense. The sea, sun, and resort vibe likely help people relax, reflect, and enjoy swimming and sunbathing. But Poland as an island of psychological well-being, that's interesting. Really interesting. Like I said, maybe it's actually a parallel reality. It just kind of messed with my head, and none of that is real. No beatings, no deportations, no tragedies, no online or real-life pressure about how ungrateful you are either. Yeah, by the way, honestly, I haven't heard a single Polish politician say, "Thank you to the Ukrainian army for holding the line so that this whole horde isn't coming further at us." I don't think I've ever heard that, probably. Well, that's it, yeah. Everything's already mixed up in my head. It's like some kind of Marvel alternate multiverse. That's it. Especially when I read Polish news and the comments on articles about Ukrainians, it feels like a different world. Yeah, but at the same time, researchers have listed Poland and Germany as leaders in resilience. What is that, you might ask? This term sounds impressive, but actually means something simple. You get knocked down by circumstances, get up, dust off, and keep going. That's it. If you want to survive, you've got to be resourceful. Psychologists have divided people's behavior into two strategies. Adaptive, meaning you arrive, put your suitcase by the wall, start learning the language, look for a job, take care of paperwork, build a new life. Strangely enough, most of these people ended up in Poland. Although here, people tell us that everything is free. Yeah, a Lamborghini for free, a house for free, everything for free. Damn, I don't know. It triggers me. Regardless of geography, it still triggers me. Yeah, and it's maladaptive, right? To just sit somewhere by the sea and hope that problems will resolve themselves without your personal involvement. And scientists draw a logical conclusion. Mental health is directly related to the living conditions in the host country. If there are jobs, some clear rules, and access to healthcare, then the stress level will decrease. Friends, write in the comments what you think is the secret to Polish psychological comfort. The proximity to home, the similarity of the language, and the fact that work and everyday concerns simply leave no time for any worries. Well, or maybe it's also because our dear Poles support us in everything. Yes, it's interesting, of course. Stable rules of the game and having a job help to cope with stress better than many psychology workshops. Yes, trainings. In short, science has once again confirmed what most people have known for a long time without grants and very, very expensive international research. That certainty is calming. Yes, and look, seriously, in Poland there are certain rules of the game, but here it gets more complicated, that's a fact. But it's still relatively clear. You work, you pay taxes, you don't break the law. The state will leave you alone, seriously. That's it. Although, let's see what happens next. That's the situation for now. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones, friends. Leave a like, comment, and say what city you're watching from if you made it to the end. It's important. Thank you very much for your attention. That's all for now. That's it. What else did I want to say? Yes, and actually, I still say this to Poles, even in Italy. Poles, let's live in peace. Let's not quarrel. Let's not talk about this ingratitude because, in my opinion, it won't lead to anything good. Share your thoughts in the comments. Maybe I'm wrong and we should always argue, but I'm like Leopold the cat. Let's live in peace. That's all. See you next time.